Hello everyone, Linda Israel here, and I've got a project for you today that I think you might enjoy seeing. The idea was when I was working with Christine at Canvas Court Brands, we were needing a way to attach pages together like you would with washi tape, but they don't sell washi tape. So we started playing around with transparent tape, office tape if you will. Some people call it Scotch brand, just different kinds of clear transparent tape. So here's what I've done. I've got a piece of cardboard that I have wrapped with wax paper. You can also use a non-stick craft sheet like one of these by Ranger, Tim Holtz. You could also use the mixed media mat by Ken Oliver. So there's a lot of different things you could use, but I chose to use the wax paper because a lot of people can get the wax paper relatively easily. So the next thing I did was I took some of the Scotch tape, I folded over the end so that it'll be easier to lift it off this piece of wax paper, and I just cut a piece and I'm going to put it on the same direction as I have the others, like so. And then I've grabbed some Tattered Glam, and in this case I've got espresso bean, which is a really dark brown, and I've got a paintbrush. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to this jar and pick up some of this color, and I'm going to paint, let me get closer, on this washi or the Scotch tape or transparent tape. The more you put on, the longer you'll have to wait for it to dry. So I'm just going to put a coat on all of these and then I'll come right back. Now you can go in here and make some patterns with this. It's going to dry shiny, and if you leave texture on it, it will show that texture on the tape. So I'm just kind of adding some interest to this. I'm going to do, I've got 5 pieces of tape here, so I'm going to do the other 4 and then we will move on. I failed to say that when you are working with Glam, you want to make sure that you shake this bottle up really well so that any glitter or mica that's in it will be in the liquid. Alright, so I'm going to let mine air dry for a while. You can heat it to dry it. The problem is if you heat it too long, it will cause the adhesive on the tape no longer to stick. So I'm going to set mine aside and let it dry, and then I'll be back. Continuing on with the Junk Journal 101 from Canvas Court Brands, we have a few things laid out here. So first we have this watercolor paper print from Tattered Angels, I believe is this where this one is from. It's especially made for this kit because it's 8 inches tall by 10.5 wide. And it has lines on the back side, so it's a nice quality, heavier paper. We're using some packaging that is no longer valid with 7 Gypsies. They were going to throw these away, and I said we can use these images in a junk journal. So we're going to use these images, and we'll cut those up here in just a moment. We've got 2 little journal cards. These are white. They're approximately, let's see here, they're 3.5 by about 5 inches in size. There's a 5 by 7 ivory colored envelope, some tissue paper that has been printed, and then we're going to use a few elements out of this stash pack, and then I have a few colors of Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. So let's get started here. Let's paint first. So the way that this paper is designed, you can paint on it with your choice of watercolor paint. You could use colored pencils and markers. It's a heavier paper. We're going to use some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist just to show you how well it works together. I've got a little palette here, and I find that sometimes it's easier to work with because we're going to paint with these, and trying to dip into the bottle, sometimes you can have a disaster. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to shake it up, and then I'm going to spritz it into the little areas. So I've just got a regular little paintbrush, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these roses this purple color just because I want to be different. So I have dipped my paintbrush into a little bit of water just so it's a little bit damp, and then I'm going to dip it into the Tattered Angels and then just go in here and apply it to the paper. What I like about this paper, since it's printed with the shadows on there, it kind of already has the shading in it, and depending on how heavy you put the color on will determine how dark this looks. If you think you've got too much, you can always blot it with the paper towel, and that will pick up some of the color. See how that's coming together really nicely? It makes it really fast to color these. Alright, I'm going to clean out my brush, just rinsing it in some water. I want to pick up some of this green and color in the stems. Alright, I'm cleaning my brush off again, and this time I'm going to use Curious to color in the butterflies. So we have Fully Purple, Curious, and Hemlock Green is what I've used so far. So I'm just going to go in here and just kind of loosely paint my butterfly. And then I'll clean my brush off again. So you can stop at this point if you want. You can continue on and paint the borders and the sides. Maybe you want to doodle, whatever you like there. Here is another page that I made earlier where I used red and yellow and a different shade of green. So you kind of see how different they can look just by changing the colors around of Tattered Angels. Alright, so I've got the packaging, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim off the top and the bottom and cut this in half. The next thing I'm going to do is I want these as pairs, so I'm going to trim this and between here and here, and then trim this between here and here, so I'll end up with 3 pieces. So those pieces have been trimmed. And then the rest of these, I'm just going to go ahead and cut each one individually. So now we have all these pieces and elements that we can use. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this diagonally. So now I have these little elements that I can use. I know I'm going to use those. So I'm picking out all the pieces that I know and plan on using. Alright, so we've got an envelope here, and we're going to decorate it using some of these pieces that we just cut up. And we're going to use some tissue paper. So depending on your mood, you can choose to just rip a piece of this tissue paper. You could adhere it on where it covers the entire flap. And I think I'm going to do that today. I just want to cover the flap. So what I'm going to do is I've got some glue stick here. Just cheap glue stick. You just want to make sure that it is a fresh glue stick so that it is not dried up. Because there's nothing worse than having a dried up glue stick. And I'm going to go right across this flap. I like using glue stick with tissue paper and napkins because they're thinner materials and you don't need a lot of wet glue. Okay, so I'm just covering that just a little bit. And then I'm going to take this tissue paper and line it up with the fold and then just press that into place. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim it out. So that adds a little character to our envelope. And then I've got my little corner pieces that we cut. And these are going to go here on the bottom. So I'm just going to put on 2 sides a little bit of glue. See there on 2 sides? And we're going to place that right here on our envelope. Do the same on this side. It's a great way to recycle that packaging from 7 Gypsies, is to make little elements out of it. Alright, and then we've got these little journal cards. I want to take these images and I'm going to adhere these down onto the journal card. Do that with this one. Now I glued on 2 sides of this image only because I thought if you had another piece of ephemera you wanted to stick under there, you could. It's always handy to have another tuck spot in a journal. So if we wanted to, I'm going to hold it in place because my glue's not dry, this could slip underneath there. Does that give you an idea? So just being creative and figuring out clever ways to use all the pieces. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this envelope and I'm going to fold it in half. And so now it becomes a page and we're going to decorate this side. Alright, so I've gone through here and I know I want this crown piece. I've cut a couple other pieces. This will go there. And I think I want this piece. And let's use that piece. So I'm just going to look at this. I think I want to go ahead and trim these. These were pieces that I just cut because I was using around them. And I thought, well, I'll use these on this journal. So I'm just going ahead and trimming out each of these pieces. Okay, so now we're going to make little tuck spots for these. So I'm going to adhere these. I'm going to do 2 sides like that. And then this will go on the corner. And then this one with the little butterfly, so you can write on there. We're going to make it a tuck spot by doing 2 sides like that. And it's going to go over here. And again, if you want to, you have the supplies, you could add distress inks to this. That is entirely up to you as far as decorating it like that. So we're going to put this little card here. I don't want to poke it down all the way in yet because that glue's not dry, and then that one will go there. We'll flip this over. We'll open it up. And our little journal cards that we made, this one's going to go over here. Actually, I'm going to do it opposite. I want it like this. So you can kind of see those. And then we'll poke these little pieces, which are white on the back, so you can journal on those. And then we'll close this back up. And now we're going to use some more pieces here. I'm going to fold this in half because this is going to be the inside. And I want to attach this to my journal, and we're going to use the tape that we made earlier. So I went in and I used the Glam on this tape. I've let it air dry, did not apply heat to it. It probably took it about 30 minutes to dry where it's not sticky anymore. And so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up a piece of this tape. And we're going to put it on the edge of this envelope. I'm going to trim it. I'll save this piece in case I need it somewhere else. I'm going to trim the other side. You want it even with the top of your envelope. You don't want it to extend beyond because we're going to want this to be able to fold back and forth. So a little bit away from the center, I'm going to place this down and rub this tape into place. So look at that. Isn't that kind of cool the way that texture looks on there? I'm going to flip this over this way and we're going to repeat putting tape on this side. So now we have another page to go in our journal. Wasn't that simple? It's just a matter of adding a few elements and putting it together. Okay, well that is the next page. We're going to reset and move on to the next page. If you like this video, please let me know, comment below, give me a thumbs up. If you have questions, please feel free to ask, and I will be very glad to help you. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.